Okay, that previous one, this is a different problem here. The previous one where it was 10, blah, 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 we had, in sense, 50 divided by 60. If you canceled out zeros, 5 divided by 6, the answer is 0.833333. Since it's less than 1, you'd call that 0.83, round off to hundreds. Realize, again, don't look at this problem yet. That was 10 milligrams per kilogram per day to this, 44-pound patient. What if some other patient had the same order of 10 milligrams per kilogram per day, but that patient weighed half of that patient? The patient would get half of that 0.83 amount. Some other patient had the same order and weighed double that patient's weight. That patient would get double the medication. It's all based upon the weight of the patient. It's not a one-size-fits-all like most drug orders are. Let's look at another one. The order is for 12 milligrams per kilogram per day. Q8H, patient weighs 67 pounds. That's the dosage strength. How much am I going to give? Do it the same way. The first job is to write the order, and I should have written the word order, but that's the order. Order is 12 milligrams per kilogram per day, but write it in a mathematical fashion. Thusly, 12 milligrams per kilogram per day. You wrote it that way, I hope. Next job. We now need to multiply by the patient's weight expressed in kilograms. We're doing that so that those will eventually cancel out. Well, I don't know what that is. We have 67 pounds. Now, save yourself some time and effort. No matter what you do to do a conversion of pounds into kilograms, you put the pounds over 1, do all this, that 2.2 numbers there, make it real simple. If you know the pounds, you merely divide by 2.2 to find the kilograms. Now I'm going to coach you on something here. What you don't really need to do is do a calculation and then use a rounded off number for your next step. That builds error into that calculation. So follow my simple instructions here, just like I'm doing. Get your hand dandy calculator out here. You take 67 divided by 2.2. Now do this with me. Get your little machine out. That says 30.45454. It goes on. Okay. Now, don't just round this off and put that here. Now, let me backpedal. I can put that here in a rounded off form just to keep track. You need to put a number here and keep track of every step. Do not skip steps. Don't do steps just in your head in some imaginary way. Unless you're a mathematical genius, I don't think I have any of those in my class. So it's 30.4545. If we round that off just to show here as the nearest tenth, well, that would be 30.5. But do not put that back in the machine. You already have 30.454545 in the machine, right? Leave that there. Let me coach you here about, it'll save you steps anyway. Save finger motion, save you time, save you effort. For each of these 3 or 4 steps along the way, keep the previous answer in the machine, in the calculator. So let's keep that 30.454545 number in the calculator. Just leave it there, okay? We're calling it here just to kind of get a rough estimate. So what are we going to do next? Cancel kilograms. Do that. They cancel those. Now I must multiply this times this. Well, I've already got the exact number 30.454545 in my machine. Then just say times 12 equals. See that? Skipped a step. You didn't have to put it back in there. It was already there. Now the answer is 365.454545. So let's just call that, at this point, call it 365. What we're not going to do, though, is plug that number back into the calculator. You've already got the exact number, 365.454545, in there. Use that number for your next step, which we'll do in a moment. But the major important thing is this. 365 what? What is not canceled? Milligrams per day. Those words are not canceled. We're going to get 365 milligrams per day. Write that down. That's not just milligrams. That's the milligrams for the entire day. So for the whole next 24 hours, I'm going to give my patient 365 milligrams. But I need to know each dose, or sometimes the term is in divided doses, divided up per day. How much will this patient get each time he gets his or her medicine? Well, I need to know how many times a day this is given. Now, don't mess this up. That first one we did was QID. That means 4 times a day. I divided by 4. This says Q8H. Well, I've had Aggies in the class before, and they say, oh, divide by 8. No, you don't divide by 8. Don't just look at the number and say, oh, that number 8's up there. Divide this by 8. If something's done every 8 hours, that means since there are 24 hours in a day, divide 24 by 8. How many times a day will something be done if it's done every 8 hours? And the answer is 3. Okay. It's done 3 times a day. Do not divide by 8. We're going to divide this by 3. You need to understand this. If that's done every 8 hours, it'll be done 3 times every day. So the biggest caution, again, I'm going to say this again, don't just look at the number. Oh, the number's 8 up there. Don't put that number 8 here. It's 3 times a day. Well, I take the number. Of course, I'm not using the 365. I'm using the number, the whole thing, 365.454545. It's already in my calculator. Use that number and then just say, divide that number by 3. Well, that equals 121 point blah, 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 blah. Well, it's 121.8182. It's write something down just to get a reference point. 121.8. That's the rounded off version to tenths. But I don't want to use a rounded off number in my next calculation. So I'm going to use the number that's still in my calculator. I'm just using this to kind of keep track of every step. But this is what? The per day disappeared because I divided by the number of times per day. So this is what? That's the milligrams that I have per dose. In fact, you might want to put that over 1. We're going to do a dosage calculation next anyway. That's that much in every 1 dose. I'm going to give 121.8 milligrams each dose. So the next time I go into my little 67-pound patient's room and give him or her his or her medication, how much will I give him? 121.8 milligrams. But I need to convert that into milliliters. That's the amount in milligrams. I need to do my dosage calculation using my available amount. Let's now do a dosage calculation. I've got 100 milligrams in every milliliter. This cancels this. Well, again, don't use this rounded off number. Use the one you've got here. So it says 121.818 blah, 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 blah. Now we divide that by 100. And the final answer you round off. I hope you catch what I'm saying about this. Use each step along the way. Use the number still in the calculator to do your next step. Don't round it off, plug it back in as a rounded off number, and use that in your next step. Use the real number, the whole big long thing. Well, now the final step you should round off. Since it's more than 1, you're going to round off to how many decimal places? 1, the tenths. So it's 1.2182. So if it's 1.218, it goes on, I'm going to stop it right there. But since the next number is under 5, I'll leave that one alone. So the final answer is 1.2. I give this patient 1.2 milliliters. How many times a day will I do that? 3 times. I'll do it every 8 hours. So every 8 hours that go by, I'll give 1.2 milliliters. Get to stick my patient with a sharp object. That means for the whole day, the patient will get what? 365 milligrams. But again, that gives the patient 12 milligrams for every kilogram the patient weighs for the whole day. Now we're going to keep seeing more and more of these in all the different variations that can crop up. But this is critical. This, I beg of you. Now, I do not make out your final. I make out your quizzes. I made out your mid-semester test. They make out your final. They, I say with great respect and awe, the nursing faculty. And so I've not seen your final yet. I won't see it till a few weeks from now. But everyone I've ever seen has several of these problems that involve the per weight thing. So get used to doing them. We're going to do more in just a moment.